highlights of this deck would be, or I guess not so much highlights, but as some of the fun cards in this deck are a Chrono Crusader, which is which a lot of people would have dismissed as a draft common, but it does a little bit of work in this deck, especially if you can pair it up with things like Madcap Skills and Dragon Mantle. You can get in for a lot of damage early. Legion Loyalist is another card I like in this deck because you can get some pretty crazy turns with that on turn 3. You can play that and a hasty 2-drop, probably Ash Zealot, and you can do a fair bit of damage there too.
Activate Early Battalion as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Trample through the potential tokens. Also gives
sometimes you can just play it as a 1-drop for 1/1 haster for one.
Raging Goblin.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. All right, sounds good. And I have the list for Mr. Mike White. He is on the red-based Devotion deck. Now, a very common splash in this deck is white. A lot of people like playing cards like Chain to the Rocks and Boros Charm in this deck. Mike has opted to go with the green route. He is splashing for 3 main deck copies of Domre Raid, as well as in his sideboard we see 3 copies of Mistcutter Hydra and 3 Destructive Revelries. So he has decided that the green is going to be worth it, and it paid off for him in the first round, of course. The Mistcutter Hydras decimated the blue-white control player.
As they would tend to do, having pro-blue.
Yes, exactly.
Chris, tell me why Destructive Revelry is good right now, because I don't know what... I don't know about artifacts, but I mean, imagine there's a few good enchantments in the format right now.
Yes. The primary reasons for Destructive Revelry are cards like Detention Sphere, which is still a very major player. It's a 4 of in every blue-white X control deck, as well as Underworld Connections, which is a 4 of out of the mono-black deck.
Right, exactly. That's an important card for that deck for sure.
As well, and it also, of course, deals with weapons. Bident of Thassa is seeing play in the mono-blue deck, as well as Whip of Erebos in some mono-black decks. So it does help to deal with that as well. And there's...
I guess in this matchup, I don't know, you probably wouldn't bring him in, but I guess you probably don't really want to hit a Madcap Skills with Revelry, but I mean, I don't know. It depends on how important that is in this matchup, which I don't know.
Yeah, well, they're not particularly important in the mono red deck. Of course, this red Devotion deck is going to be more on the defensive than it is the offensive in this matchup, I think.
So we're underway here. Looks like that looks like a Temple of Abandon.
Yeah,
for Mike.
So that is the green-red temple, and that is going to provide a little bit of scry action. And scry has proved to be very powerful in this format as of late.
Kyle follows up with Mountain into Foundry Street Denizen, which is a pretty popular turn 1 play. You want to get that guy out early so you can get the triggers.
It's one of the many 1-drops in the Boss Sly deck, and it looks like no turn 2 play for Mike. And it looks like Kyle's going to deploy some more creatures. So Rakdos Cackler, unleashed, of course. It's not very often you see that guy on a leash. And that is going to pump up the Foundry Street. And is he going to go with the Legion Loyalist here as well?
I can't see a reason why not. I mean, if you can use your mana efficiently here to get another guy in play.
It looks like that's what's going to happen.
Hold it back. So
Kyle pointing out the Foundry Street Denizen has 3 power, and that is an attack for 4 on turn 2. Very, very out of the gates start here for Kyle. And it looked like he had multiple lightning strikes.
Yeah, I did see some lightning strikes, at least one in hand. So I mean, he's...
And here comes Mizium Mortars, and so Mike has got to play the I got to try and stave off your early aggro. And do you think that the Cackler is the correct hit there?
I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, I assume that Mike probably has some more removal or something good in hand. I mean, I don't know that probably waiting till 6 is probably not a good idea in this deck. I don't think there's any way for him to ramp into the 6, so he probably just burns it early. And that's going to do the most damage with nothing happening, because the other 2 creatures are just 1/1s naturally, so that's an Arena Athlete.
That is an Arena Athlete, and Arena Athlete is going to be a big deal in this matchup because, of course, as we said, Mike is going to be wanting to lay some of his bigger creatures and take advantage of the fact that they are higher toughness than pretty much every creature in Kyle's deck has power, but Arena Athlete's going to nullify that plan. And so here's an Ash Zealot.
That might be on blocking duty here. I mean, it functions pretty well as a blocker, and that's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, and so it's not very often you see Ash Zealot held back, but it looks like it's going to be here, and oh god, that was a Madcap Skills drawn. So Madcap on the Arena Athlete here would represent a lot of damage that Mike wouldn't be able to do anything about.
5, 6...
Now you also see Titan Strength. It looks like Kyle's going with that this turn instead.
Yeah, save his madcap skills for.
Yeah. So he's going to play the Acrone Crusader here, which is going to pump it up. Okay, so he's going on the a lot of extra do a little bit of extra damage with the Foundry Street Denizens in this turn. And of course, we're going to see the trigger from the Athlete, target the Zealot, and a Scry.
I like the early Titan Strength because obviously scrying into another land here might be able to let him play a 1-mana spell and then a Lightning Strike maybe to kill him.
Yeah, and now a play that we saw Tom Ross do several times when he was playing this deck is he would Titan Strength, if he knew he was on the plan of Titan Strengthing, he would in fact upkeep it so that he could scry his draw.
That's not bad. Yeah, that makes sense.
So definitely something that should be kept in mind by all the players who are playing that card in Standard. And so we see a second Ash Zealot coming down. Now, the second Ash Zealot is going to really help stave this off a little bit.
Well, I mean, right now, if Kyle has more than one Lightning Strike, I mean, he's just got to win. He's got 2 turns. And he does 2. It looks like he does have 2. So, I mean, I think Kyle...
Well, actually, Kyle just has lethal here if he has...
Yeah, if he just swings, I think it's over, yeah. Or Madcap Skills will never...
Yeah. Madcap Skills... Oh, yeah, actually, that also does it, too, because that would put lethal damage on the Arena Athlete, since one blocker would be nullified.
Yeah, Kyle, with an abundance of riches there, and had many different ways that he could win that match. So I guess we're going to go to the second game here. Now, what's the sideboard plan for Mike here?
So, Mike's sideboard, as we mentioned, has 3 Destructive Revelry, 3 Mistcutter Hydra, 3 Anger of the Gods, a Mizium Mortars, 2 Plummet, a Skullcrack, an Ember Swallower, and a Chandra Pyromaster. Pretty easy inclusions, I think. Anger of the Gods and Mizium Mortars.
100%. On Kyle's side, I like bringing in the Peak Eruptions here. I mean, I know they're not going to do as much work as if they were already chained to the rocks, but I mean, like, keeping Mike off mana here is pretty good. Other than that, I mean, I don't know that it's possible that Pithing Needle might be brought in for Domri. I don't know how, again, in this matchup, I don't know how important Domri is. I don't know if Kyle's overly concerned about it and it's worth bringing it in.
Right.
What do you think of Shock here?
Shock is kind of interesting. It does take out several creatures in Mike's deck that he would be looking to hold back on defense. However, I don't know if it does enough that Kyle would want to bring it in over cards that he already has.
Like I said, I like the Peak Eruptions.
Just as a way to help race, really?
Well, I mean, like, you keep Mike off mana. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff that he wants to do later on in the game. I mean, he has Storm Red Dragon, he has Perforos. I mean, I don't know if overloading Mizium Mortars is a thing, but even Hammer Perforos, like, if you can keep him off mana, he's not going to want to sack Mountains to hammer, and he's not going to be able to do the things he wants to do later on in the game.
Definitely nullify his later game as well as contributing to your race.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, I mean, I don't know how... In this matchup where you're not getting the same kind of value you would against some of the decks that run, like I said, Chain to the Rocks, but it's certainly a consideration here as Mike is playing 12 Mountains, and I guess 16 if you include the
Stomping Grounds as well. Yeah. What do you think of Coordinated Assault?
Coordinated Assault, I mean, it's a one-of. Here, it's tough to say. I mean, I don't think that you're in a situation where you want to be, you're not going to really trade with creatures. I mean, you're not going to trade with Ash Zealot. You're not going to trade with Boros Reckoner. You're not going to win combat with those creatures, even if you do have the extra first strike and point of damage there. So I don't see bringing that in here.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Like I said, I mean,
that's
the sideboard plan of
this
deck is something that I'm not really entirely sure of. Like, for example, I don't know what Barrage of Expendables is for.
Barrage of Expendables is a nifty little card that Kyle decided to play in his sideboard, which I think it's primarily for control decks. So if the control deck decides to try and Detention Sphere or Supreme Verdict, Kyle can keep mana open with a Barrage and just throw the creatures at his head.
Yeah, exactly right. That makes sense. So that does 1 damage when you sack a creature?
1 damage when you sack a dude.
You pay mana for that?
Yes, 1 red, I believe it is. It's a little bit iffy in the 17-land deck, but apparently it has worked out for him already once today. He decided to play it as a one-of bullet, so... but the Pithing Needle you mentioned can turn off the Domre Red.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that might actually be reasonable. Domre's fightability is very powerful in this matchup.
No, for sure. Now, I guess the question is it worth running the one-of to turn it off, where you could just be trying to deal more damage instead? I mean, I think in this case, I mean, you want to be fairly quick before Mike gets any of his Nykthos or late-game shenanigans. So I don't know, like, playing a reactive card here may not be the best plan, but I mean, again, like I said, I don't know how important Diamond Raid is in the matchup. So.
True. I think it's more so for things like, I mean, you could have Jace Architect of Thought named off it.
Oh, for sure. In other,
I've
in other
also
matchups,
yeah
for
in
sure.
other matchups. I've also seen something happen with Python Needle. People in these red aggressive decks have been naming Mutavault. Mutavault is a very common way for some decks to present early blockers, and if Pithing Needle names Mutavault,
They are not
their plan might get completely changed.
That's interesting.
So it
I would
looks-
never even have thought. I would have thought that Pithing Needle actually said target or name a non-land card, but
No, it just says activated abilities of the chosen card can't be activated unless they're mana abilities.
Okay. I guess of course not a mana ability.
Yeah. So it looks like Kyle is content with his 7. Mike is going to take a mulligan on the play here, which is a little bit rough for him in this matchup. And as I was saying earlier, the mono red deck, particularly this boss slide version, is a deck that's built to punish stumbles.
Oh, it certainly is. I mean, the deck has so much redundancy, obviously in the early game. So many 1-drops. I mean, it's hard for that deck. I mean, unless it really has no lands. I mean, you can keep a 1 or 2 lander and have just plays after play, and if the deck can't respond, I mean, if the responding deck can't respond.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's
Exactly.
rough. And I think Kyle did keep his 7.
He did keep his 7, and I believe I see 2 lands and the rest of spells, so pretty ideal, I think, for him.
That sounds right. Unless all those spells are madcap skills and.
Well, there's at least one
Dragon
madcap
Mantles.
skills, but I'm pretty sure there's also a Ash Zealot in the hand as well, and I believe he might have a 1-drop, possibly a Cackler.
Yeah, there's no shortage of 1-drops in this deck. I mean,
No.
Kyle could certainly draw into them as well.
He has at least 14 or 16 1-drops, I believe.
There's
Crusader,
4 Crusader,
Cackler.
4 Cackler, 4 Satyr, 4 Denizen, 4 Loyalist. That's 20. And I think that's it.
Yeah, 20 1-drop creatures.
And then just the 4 Ash Outs and 3
Arena
athletes
at 2.
At 2.
So, yeah. Like we say, this deck is all about we are going to just come out fast, and if you can't stop the early pressure, that's going to do it. But one thing that I've noticed with this deck, though, is that if you can stop the early pressure, it has a hard time coming out back in the late game.
Looks like a stomping grounds for Mike to start. Play tapped, obviously.
And there is one of the many 1-drops, and probably the best one to start with, Foundry Street Denizen.
Yeah, it's certainly good because you could potentially hit for 3 with it on turn 2, although that's a pretty nice blocker.
Now, that's a
there
brick
for,
wall. However, there is
Mike.
a Madcap Skills present in Kyle's hand, I believe. So that would allow a forcing through of the Denizen. There's also a Titan Strength if he decides to try and bait that. The Titan Strength would act as a removal spell there to remove that weird.
Fix his draws for later. Now, is that 2 madcap skills in there?
That's 2 Ash Zealots. There's one
Oh,
Madcap
Zealots,
at the
aha.
back.
Okay.
And it looks like Kyle is just going to deploy some extra creatures here. He's going to lay that, pump out, and here comes the attack. So like I mentioned, drawing Mike into a block into the Titan Strength.
Yeah, that seems to be the play here.
And
Mike will have. I think Mike has no choice.
Yeah,
but to
Mike
make the
does
play
not
here.
have a choice but bite, and we see Titan Strength is going to come down on this Legion Loyalist. The Frostburn Weird is going to bite the dust. 2 damage going to be dealt, and a scry will be had.
Yeah, and the squire's left on top. Pretty man efficient way to get
And
through
now
there.
here, though, is a Boros Reckoner, which is basically Mike. I would have to say Mike's most potent weapon in the matchup.
Definitely is. I mean, even a lightning strike here will cause a loss of a creature, I would imagine, here for Kyle. So.
Well, he would be directly 2 for 1ing himself if
Exactly
he
right.
striked it, and that's not something you want to be doing with a deck like this. It looks like Kyle is going to deploy an Ash Zealot. No, he's going to Madcap. All right, so now the Madcap going to come into play, and we're going to see it come across for 4 that Mike can't really do anything about.
Now, I mean, we would have to assume that Mike might have either a Mizium Mortars or perhaps sideboarded Anger here, although Anger is not great for him because, of course, he loses his own
He
blocker.
loses his Reckoner.
But
I mean, sometimes you
Mizium
have-
Mortars is there.
And there it is.
There's a Mortars.
All right, that's very, very good for Mike here, because that Madcap Skills was presenting a lot of problems in this matchup, and that Mizium Mortars is likely going to be able to let him stabilize.
Yeah, and that Reckoner is just going to sit there.
Yeah. That Reckoner is just going to sit there on block duty. Now,
That's an
there,
arena
though,
athlete.
is an arena athlete. So, playing that will allow him to attack next turn, because there is the Dragon Mantle, of course, in hand that will target it. But the Arena Athlete is not a permanent solution to the Boros Reckoner is the problem. It's a solution so long as there's fuel to target it.
Yeah, and it's a fragile solution. I mean, if Mike somehow draws another removal spell here.
Yeah, a Mizium Mortars, a Dome Ray Raid. A Dome Ray Raid would be brutal here if Mike could get that.
Certainly would be.
And
Mike
is
decides
Mike,
it looks like he's
is
gonna
he
turn.
getting aggressive here?
Maybe he's got to follow. Maybe he's got to follow a Reckoner.
It's possible.
I mean, he must have something here to.
Yeah.
That looks like another Reckoner. No, that is an anger.
Oh, it's an anger. All right. And Kyle saying no.
Gesturing in exasperation.
I do not want that to happen.
But the 3 damage should hit him as well there.
Yeah, and it looks like that is what happened.
Exactly.
And now Kyle going to be behind the 8-ball, of course. Now he does have Ash Zealots.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the play is pretty simply Ash Zealot and attack here.
Yeah.
I don't really see anything else other than just getting some guys in play here. Although
it looks like he's going with Legion Loyalist Dragon Mantle. He has a mantle.
Okay, to draw a card here. That's not horrible.
He is going to get a cantrip, and it's a land.
Which he'll play, I suppose.
I'm assuming. I'm surprised he didn't play it pre-combat there to pump up the.
Oh yeah,
the Loyalist. So it looks like
that was just a straight misplay there, I think.
Yeah, it was just a little bit of a misstep, missed sequencing.
Yes, exactly.
Is all. So I mean,
nothing. But I mean,
point of damage missed, but
I mean that in these sorts of matchups can be pretty important. 1 point of damage might be the difference between Kyle getting his full 20 and just a 19. And
exactly in a deck that, like Kyle's, every point of damage does count. Yeah. So that is a little bit of a misstep there. Not too huge right now, but we'll see if it does come back to bite him later.
That's just, I think, out of a habit of just playing your lands after combat.
Yeah.
Giving your
which in a lot of cases is not a bad play, but in this situation it did cost him a point, and you see Mizium Mortars going to take care of the creature. Mike is on the 1-for-1 plan until he has some pressure of his own. But Kyle is quite happy to keep playing dudes. Here comes the Zealot. And I believe he drew a Cackler as a follow-up. He did.
Well, that's not bad. I mean, it pales in comparison to some of Mike's later plays, but I mean, it's a board presence for now. And another anger. That might do it here, I think. I don't know that Kyle has anything in hand.
Well, he has an Ash Zealot, but
yes,
he does, and he also has a Lightning Strike.
Okay, well, I mean,
so Kyle still has pressure. He's still
saying that point of damage may matter here.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I believe that was a dragon off the top for Mike. But there's Reckoner. Ooh, that's just an Acrone Crusader, and this is the problem that the boss slide deck can run into in the later game, is that some of these 1- and 2-drop one-drop creatures that it has not very good in this part of the game.
The board, yeah.
And now we see an Ash Zealot deployed from Mike. Something to keep in mind as well: the first strike damage from Ash Zealot can be used to take out another attacker should Mike choose to do that with the Reckoner. An important interaction to note: first strike on the Reckoner. Kyle sitting.
Is Mike deciding whether to attack here now?
I think that's what he's thinking about, if he wants to get in, and if so, with what. I don't necessarily hate attacking with the Zealot here. Oh, it looks like... Oh, you got another Zealot. Oh, boy.
Mike is shields up here for now.
Yeah, covering. And Kyle looking at that Lightning Strike in his hand. This doesn't do a lot.
All of a sudden he's on the burn plan now, I think. And
there's only 4 Lightning Strikes to do that.
Unless he warded in, like I said, some of the peak eruptions, but I don't know that.
I don't know if he did, and if so, how effective that would be right now. Though, of course, Mike hasn't hit a land drop for a couple of turns, and we do know that he is sitting with that dragon he drew prior. I think it was a dragon. And Reckoner going to come across. Kyle says fine. Oof.
That is a third Ash Zealot, and
how good would Nicholas be right now? Or Fnatic?
Kyle is, I think, deciding whether to pack it in on this draw, and
yeah, this draw is probably going to decide this game. I think Mike has very, very well set up his board now, and it looks like we're going to see an attack, and we're probably just going to see a block.
Hoping, I guess, for the damage to get through, and maybe he can find some way to eke out those last.
Well, I mean, if this goes unblocked, Titan Strength, Lightning Strike would be lethal.
That's true.
I think it would be lethal, unless I'm doing my math.
I don't see any reason.
Oh wait, no, it would bring him to 1. That play
I don't see any reason why Mike doesn't block here, though.
There's a reason.
Oh, triple block. Yeah, okay.
He's saying if you have a Titan Strength, the Zealot is going down, and it looks like
much what's happening here. I think
it looks like the Titan Strength is there, and there it is. So Kyle's gonna go with the Titan Strength. says I don't want that. And so this is going to trade off 2 of Mike's Ash Zealots for Kyle's 1 Ash Zealot and a Titan Strength. So it's a 2 for 2. And Kyle throwing lands around.
He left the card on top, Jubilee, from the scry as well.
No, he didn't.
No, he put it on bottom.
He
That's
did
what I was
put it
thinking
on
of the other
bottom.
turn. I was thinking of the other turn.
No, that's fine. Alright, so now the players, I think, are resolving combat. And so just deciphering which creature dies. And it looks like Kyle's going to burn the Lightning Strike on that last Zealot, so
I don't know if that's the best plan for that Lightning Strike right now.
I think Kyle's plan is that he's on the plan of drawing a Madcap Skills.
But even then, I mean that I think at this point the 3 points of damage is better aimed at Mike.
Oh, I agree with you. But
Oh, that's the Chandra. Yeah, this game is.
that's
gonna
gonna seal the deal, I think.
Because I mean,
A
like,
ping upstairs into the creature and attack for 3. Kyle's at
many
7.
of Kyle's creatures are 1 toughness, and Chandra's.
He's just got 2 lands in hand.
Yeah, this is going to game 3.
Yeah.
Kyle though, hanging in there.
Yeah. He's gonna make Mike do it.
Oh, you don't know about that 1 red 9 burn spell?
We see a 0. There's the Nykthos. So that's probably just gonna power out Dragon.
Yeah, let's
see,
get
5
this
mana.
game over now. I think.
Dragon. Ash Zealot. Oh, that's lethal.
Oh, it's way lethal. Yeah.
Yeah. And Kyle says, I have lands. Let's go to game 3. All right, Mike White does manage to even it up here. So that game we saw exactly what we said Mike needed to see, with just play his removal effectively and stabilize the board with his bigger creatures, and that's exactly what happened. So going to game 3, I don't think we're going to see any particular sideboard changes here.
One thing we are going to see is Kyle going first in game 3, which is a very, very important thing for the red deck. If the red deck's on the play, it is.
And this iteration of the red deck in particular.
Yeah, it is a not insignificant amount better.
Yeah. The play versus draw is very, very big in this matchup. So we are going to see that from Kyle on the play.
Again, I don't dislike Peak Eruption here. Like I said, keeping Mike off of mana there prevents him from doing a lot of the things that he wants to do while also thwarting his own game plan. But, I mean, again, it's not... I mean, it's basically just deal 3 damage. And,
yeah.
I mean, the question becomes, do you maybe want to get some of that in there and attempt sort of a late-game burn plan instead of trying to get there with creatures, where you are facing off against things like Anger the Gods now, as well as Boros Reckoner, and even the Ash Zealots are very competent blockers.
Frostburn Weird as well.
Exactly. So I mean, I don't know that you want to go all in on the burn plan. You probably don't bring in all the shocks and the Peak Eruptions. Sure, I mean you could even bring in some number of Skull Cracks if you wanted to, but again, I don't know this matchup very well, and I don't know what Kyle's thoughts are in terms of what he wants to do.
Well, I mean, this deck is the type of deck that players can take different routes with it, as you're talking about creatures versus the burn plan in the matchup. I'm not sure what Kyle has decided to be the best, although he didn't overly sideboard. I don't think. So I
didn't see him change anything after game 2.
No, so I don't think that he's changed much of his plan. I think the plan right now that he's on, just like previous games, is to get early damage in with the creatures and then just maybe finish it with a Lightning Strike or 2. Now, obviously, that last game, once the board was stabilized, Mike was still at a high enough life total that the burn spells were still out of reach. The objective, of course, is to get him within range of the burn spells, so even once anger does happen, which it's almost inevitable,
Sure.
then the burn spells will be able to finish the job. Something to keep in mind, though, is that even if Mike angers here in this game, he's still not in the clear. I mean, it's very possible for Kyle to go after an Anger of the Gods, to drop a Legion Loyalist and flick a Madcap Skills on it. Like, that kind of thing is very conceivable and could swing the game around again.
You would have to consider, too, that Kyle will probably may play around Anger by sandbagging some number of creatures and only putting enough into play that, they're doing a fair amount of damage, well, not as much as he could, I guess, if he played his hand out. But, I mean, of course, he doesn't do any damage with creatures that are in the graveyard.
Exactly. In exile, in the case of Anger.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Now we see a shock in hand there for Kyle, so it
he
looks like
did
he does
bring in
have those
some.
in. And we see the classic one-lander in the Boss Slide deck with a ton of one-drops. Lightning Strike and Ash Salad, I
Kyle
believe.
has to determine now if he wants to hope to Mev it. I don't dislike a one lander in a lot of the times in these decks.
And
And
Kyle
Kyle says,
says
"Yeah, that's what we're doing."
He's content, so here we go.
Third straight Foundry Street Denizen to start it off.
Yeah, and so we see,
Mike with no play, turn 1.
and there's another Ash Salad drawn, so another 2-drop. So we see Rakdos Cackler, that's going to be unleashed, and here's a hit for 2. And Mike's got to be happy that Kyle has missed his land drop here. The Boss Slide deck operates far better on 2 lands than it does on 1.
Mike has a Ash Salad here. No, nothing.
He has nothing, okay.
There's a Nykthos in hand I can see from Mike. I don't
Now
see
there's a
anything else.
Dragon Mantle, so that'll help possibly cantrip into another land.
Dragon Mantle into land here would be pretty sweet.
Yeah. And there it is. There's the Dragon Mantle, and it's into a shock.
It's a shock. Okay, well, I mean,
Well, it's a hit for 3 still.
Mike has, or Kyle has some amount of burn in his hand, so I mean, it's not. I mean, of course, Mike may just play land anger here, and that really sets Kyle back a ways.
It does.
And that looks exactly what's going to happen
Yeah,
here. Yep.
there is Land Anger of the Gods. Alright, so Mike will take his 3 for 1. And now Kyle is in a position.
Kyle says, "Eat that."
Yeah, he says, I have this Legion Loyalist. It's coming in. And that was his draw for the turn. And Nykthos, Mike's play. And does he have the Boros Reckoner? Ooh, it looks like 4 mana. Is this a Chandra? That would be devastating if it was. It's an Ember Swallower. Okay. It looks like Mike decided to bring that in just as another beefy blocker.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's got 5 toughness, and
Yeah,
and of course Mike can activate it. It pretty much wrecks Kyle's day.
in this particular board state, it certainly
Well,
would.
he's not going to draw very many more lands. If he does draw a second one. I mean, if Mike can play another creature with a number of red mana symbols in the cost, I mean, we can pretty much just activate Swallower, and then that's pretty much game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing in Kyle's 75 that deals with a monstrous Ember Swallower. Literally nothing.
He cannot kill it. The only thing he can do is prevent it from blocking. And here comes a Burning Tree Emissary
Yeah.
with a Nykthos.
It's looking like that time.
Here comes 4 mana, 5. Is this the dragon? It is the dragon.
Yeah.
Dragon gets punches in, and the other creature's going to stay back.
Yeah, I think Mike is.
Mike is well on his
he's
way,
gonna take this one, I think.
to moving to 3-0 here. See another Legion Loyalist, and again, this is the risk with these 17 land, 1-drop decks with 1 lander.
Yeah, no,
They can lay creatures, but they can't deploy them fast enough.
I'm pretty sure he can monstrous the Swallower now. So I think this is just.
He does have the mana to do just that.
It's
if
just a
he
matter of
chooses.
when Kyle
It
decides
is
he
very
wants to
possible
scoop
he
it.
also just wants to Anger of the Gods to clear out everything Kyle has and then go for the monstrous next turn. And it looks like that might be... Oh no, here comes Chandra. And Chandra's going to take out one of the Legion Loyalists. And yeah, Mike just has this game firmly in his grasp with a
there's
Boros
no-
Reckoner. There is zero ways for Kyle to get out of this now.
But Kyle's hanging in there. God bless him.
Oh, he's playing it out. But
There's nothing that
this
Kyle
might
can draw.
be the last turn.
You got 1 mana?
Kyle has 1 land, and Mike has a lot of things. And boom, Cackler.
Take that. I guess he's
Do I
hoping
have
maybe
a Titan Strength?
to maybe deal with the Swallower if he decides to block it. I mean, if I'm Mike, I just take it. Why not? I mean, if he's attacking.
Here comes the Swallower block. Here comes the Titan Strength. Swallower going to go away.
Well,
Cackler also going to go away. There's the second land, finally. But, yeah, this game is...
Chandra will eat.
Actually, this is actually just lethal this turn with a Stormbreath Monstrous here. Which he does have the mana to do.
So 1 damage there.
Yeah.
4, 3, and 2.
I see Fanatic Amogus. Yeah, there it is. And there is the hand extension. Mike White does beat out the Boss Sly deck in 3 games. 2 games to 1. So Kyle did manage to steal game 1, but it looked like Mike's sideboard plan was just too strong for the Boss
Well,
Sly
I mean,
deck
straight
to
up
deal
Anger
with.
the Gods is what
Yep.
would do it there, for sure.
So we are going to cut it back to us out front here. Chris Stoyles, Mark Butt.
Hello.